Thank you very much, Professor Apia Amfu. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of J.E.A Atta, the 14th Agbogbo of the Asogli State. Now, to introduce to us a chairperson for today, ladies and gentlemen, shall we please invite the CEO of the J.E.A Mills Memorial Heritage, Nana Oye Bampo Ado.
Good afternoon to you all and welcome. The flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress and former President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, our Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Alban Sumana Bakbin, our former Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, Lady Justice Sophia Abna-Boafo Akufu, running mate to the flag bearer of the NDC, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajiman, the chairman of the NDC, Asedo Nketia Honorable, our General Secretary, Honorable Fifi Kwete, the Chair of the Advisory Council of the J.E.A Mills Memorial Heritage, J.E.A Atta the 14th, Paramount Chief of the Asogli State, the Minority Caucus Leader of Parliament, Honorable Atuforsen, all other distinguished guests, and our Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. I deem it a great honor and privilege to introduce to you my former boss, my mentor. I trained under Her Ladyship Justice Sophia Akufu as a young lawyer. Justice Sophia Akufu was born on the 20th of December, 1949. She received her secondary school education at the Parliament Hill School, Hampstead, London, and the Wesley Girls High School. She holds an LLB degree from the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana. And let me add that she was the first woman to get a first class in law at the Faculty of Law. She holds an LLM degree from Harvard Law School, Cambridge, Massachusetts. After qualifying as a barrister at law in Ghana in 1975, she performed her national service at the Legal and Consular Section of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ghana. Thereafter, she worked at the law firms of U.V. Campbell & Co. and W.E. Fugger & Co. She then joined the Ghana Airways Corporation as a legal officer and deputy corporation secretary from 1979 to 1982. She then worked at Mobil Oil Ghana Limited, where she functioned as the legal and relationship manager and company secretary for Mobil Oil Ghana. This included Mobil Oil Ghana Liberia, Mobil Oil Ghana Sierra Leone, and this was from 1982 to 1992. She then established her law firm, Akufu Legal Consultancy, now known as Apex Law Consult, and practiced as a legal consultant from 1995, when she was elevated to the Supreme Court bench. In February 2006, she was elected as one of the pioneering judges of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and was sworn in with other members of the court in July 2006. She was elected the Vice President of the court for a statutory term of 2 years in September 2008 and again in 2010. She was elected the President of the court in September 2012 for a period of 2 years, after which in 2014 she completed her term as a judge of the court. She has held several positions on various boards, commissions, and committees over the years in Ghana, the Commonwealth, and in the African Union. She became Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana from June 2017 to December 2019, when she retired in accordance with the Constitution. She is currently a Fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, a Distinguished Fellow of the Institute of Economic Affairs, and the Chairperson of the Governing Council of the University of Ghana. We welcome Her Ladyship, Justice Sofana Boafo Akufo.
I'm doing my electronic thing. Thank you very much, Anui, for that very lengthy introduction. And it was quite a delight having her as my first junior when I opened my law firm so many years ago. And she has made me proud since then. The Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Alban Sumana Babin, the flag bearer of the NDC and former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the running mate of His Excellency Mahama, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyeman. Our distinguished speaker for today, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. Togbe Afede, Nime Name, Your Excellencies of the diplomatic community, honorable members of parliament, present and former government appointees, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to everyone here. It's an honor to be invited to chair such a national lecture in remembrance of our national icon, a national father and leader who touched the hearts of Ghanaians, served Ghana selflessly and diligently as the chief taxman, and ultimately the President of the Republic of Ghana. Altogether, Professor John Evans dedicated 5 decades of his life to public service, in the course of which he also touched my mind indelibly. He was my tax law lecturer and one of the kindest persons I have ever come across. He was loved in life, mourned deeply in death, and now forever celebrated in the memory of millions of people in and outside Ghana. As my law lecturer, and thereafter, he always used to joke about how whenever I seemed to understand the steps he was teaching, then he knew everybody else must understand as well. Because sometimes he will go about 4 or 5 steps, and then he will look at me and he'll say, "Miss Akufu, are you okay?" And I'll say, "No. How did you get this one?" And I'm taking him about 4 or 5 steps back. And with the greatest patience, he would only pretending. But I have always believed in the principle of he that is down need fear no fall. So if you don't know, you don't know. The Gans say, "Ka ole, ole." And the way he dealt with us as his students made, for me personally, made a great impression on me. And one thing I learned from him was that when somebody relies on you to learn something, have patience with them, no matter what. And that is when you know you have succeeded. He was I knew him to be a very conscientious mentor who made a lifelong impact on so many of his former students. And I remember with a lot of fondness one evening in Addis Ababa at the ambassador's residence. And the people at the table, we suddenly realized that we were, other than former President Rawlings and his brother Cadman, all of us were his students at one time or the other. Betty was there, Mohammed Mumuni was there, Kwesi Kwote was there, he was then the ambassador. And I think these are the people I remember. And it was a delightful evening, and it was students once again sitting at the feet of their professor. I'll never forget that evening. And he told his brother that all the students he's ever taught, he was very proud of them. And we also made it clear to him that he's proud of us because he was a good teacher to us. Then I left university, when I set up my practice, something that I was working on for a client, and the tax issues arising. That was the man that I knew personally. He was fabulous and approachable as president, motivated by commitment to serve the nation and the citizens of the Republic of Ghana. A true patriot who served without divisiveness, favoritism, or cult-like partisanship. He was a quality leader who, in a quest for assuring continuous improvement in the cause of the Republic of Ghana, initiated the Constitutional Review Commission towards better governance for Ghana. Unfortunately, the outcomes of that exercise is yet to be made into a reality, but one day it will happen. He demonstrated commitment to personal and institutional integrity, selflessness, principled leadership, dedication to constantly seeking the welfare of the people of Ghana. I could go on and on and on, but I'm only making the chairman's acceptance remarks. So I will leave the rest to the lecture to be delivered by the speaker our speaker this evening. This 12th anniversary commemorative lecture is a purposeful event and an occasion to reflect on Prof's values, his teachings, his legacies, and his life, his style of governance, and very importantly, how he lived his faith rather than merely professing it, as many are wont to do these times. Ultimately, we must continue to search for and appreciate his views on governance and how to assure excellence at the helm of the national ship. His experience in holding up and living up to the letter and spirit of the Fourth Republican Constitution of Ghana, his political ideology, and how this shaped his attitude, demeanor, and actions as a leader. And I hope that in the lecture we will get a lot more insight. By God's grace, for the 12th consecutive time, we are gathered here for more perspectives on Professor John Evans Atta Mills, and we expect to be edified by the insightful presentation from today's distinguished speaker, Mr. Kwesi Pratt, Jr. So I'm very delighted to be chairing this event. Thank you all very much.
Please, shall we do more as she takes her seat? Thank you very much, Her Ladyship Justice Sophia Kufu, for your kind words. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have the family of Professor J.E.A. Mills here with us. In no particular order, I'll be introducing them then. Let us please acknowledge the presence of a former chairman of the National Democratic Congress, the Honorable Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo. Right, we have Dr. Cadman Mills. We also have Samuel Atta, Honorable MP for Commander Edna Eguafu Abreu. Mrs. Kwashi is here. And last but not the least, Mr. Kofi Son Atta Mills is here. Right, time to know the reason why we're here, ladies and gentlemen, and to do just that for us, shall we please invite the board chairman, J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage, the Honorable Alex Segbefia.
Our chairperson, Your Ladyship Justice Sophia Kufu, former Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Alban Kingsford Sumana Bakbin, His Excellency, the former President of Ghana and the National Democratic Congress, Mani Mahama, the running mate to the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana J. Opoku Ajima, members of the J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage Advisory Council, led by Togbi the 14th. Keynote speaker, Comrade Kwesi Pratt, our host, Professor Nana Aba Apia Amfo, my chairman and general secretary of the Great National Democratic Party. I'll stand from here onwards on all existing protocols. Good day to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to also welcome you to this 12th anniversary commemorative lecture in honor of President John Evans Atta Mills. He was our president, leader, father, mentor, and friend. Our illustrious son, President John Evans Atta Mills, appeared in the frontline politics as Vice President to His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings in 1997. With credentials, sound lawyer, teacher, tax expert, and a keen sportsman, he was known to have a quiet and calm disposition. Succeeded in becoming the president in 2009. After 3.5 years, the shortest period of being a president of the Fourth Republic, President Mills died in office on the 24th of July 2012. Yet, his legacy lives on. The fear of God, patience, tolerance, sister and brotherly love for one another, listening skills and forgiveness are part of just a few of the principles and ideals he represents. The J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage was birthed and duly incorporated on the 14th of October 2021 as a company led by guarantee. It's a profit citizen independent charitable organization. It exists to promote President John Evans Atta Mills' unique President John Evans Atta Mills' unique view of society, to cause positive actions in strengthening democratic values and human development. Its vision is to inspire humanity for a better society. After its incorporation, the J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage was launched in this very hall on the 1st of February 2022, just over 2 years ago. The Memorial Heritage has since gained NGO status and has been duly registered with the Department of Social Welfare. The J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage Board of Directors is chaired by myself. I have a committed team of board members comprising Honorable Samuel Atta Mills, Mr. C.C. Queno, and Madam Nanaoye Bambo Ado, who is the board secretary and also the CEO. Late Honorable Dr. Sherry Aite was a founding member of the Memorial Heritage and a member of the board until her unfortunate demise. May her gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Her replacement is Miss Nancy Ampofo Esquire, a distinguished senior lawyer. The J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage is working to inculcate the values and principles that President John Evans Atta Mills stood for into the Ghanaian society. The Memorial Heritage Advisory Council is made up of 15 eminent personalities. It is chaired, as I've indicated, by Togbi Afede the 14th, Agbobo Mafia of the Asogli State of the Volta region. The vice chairperson is Dr. Esther Ofe-Abuaji, former director of the Institute of Local Government Studies. The other advisory board council members are Dr. Cadman Atta Mills, brother of the president of John Evans Atta Mills and former World Bank official, Mr. Kwame Pienim, development economist and elder statesman, Honorable Alhaji Mohammed Mumuni, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. John Henry Martin Newman, Chief of Staff to President John Evans Atta Mills, Na Hassan Andani, former Chief Executive of Stanbic Bank, E.M. Commodore Mensah, businessman and former CEO of Accra Hearts of Oak, His Excellency James Babaku Mensah, Secretary to President John Evans Atta Mills and former Ambassador to the Vatican, Mr. Kweku Bramlabi, private legal practitioner and personal lawyer to President John Evans Atta Mills, Professor Agnes Atia Apusiga, Associate Professor Dean, Faculty Service, UDS, Alhaji Ahmed Vanderpoy, businessman, Dr. Abna Oye Champo, Managing Partner, Talentia Africa Limited. Ms. Kate Kwote Papafio is an entrepreneur, co-founder, managing editor of Reroy Cables Company Limited. Mrs. Marufatu Abiola Bawa is the director of the regional cluster of 19 countries of the United Bank of Africa, UBA. The NDC party, in collaboration with the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, will commemorate the exact date on which President John Evans Atta Mills died, the 24th of July 2024, next Wednesday, with a wreath-laying ceremony at the Asumdwe Park, where his remains are interred at 9 a.m. prompt. All are duly invited. It is always a solemn ceremony which reignites the loss we have suffered as a nation with the passing of this true patriot. Dress code, black and white. On Saturday, the 27th of July 2024, 8:30 a.m. at the Theodosia Oka Stadium in Accra, the President of Atta Mills Hockey Tournament will take place to climax the 12th anniversary celebrations. As part of the 10th anniversary celebrations, lectures were held in all the 16 regions of Ghana in 5 clusters. All the lectures have now been compiled in a book titled Atta Mills Around the Regions. The book will be reviewed and launched today by Professor Ransford Jampo of the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, who is also the president of the Ghana branch of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG. The first few copies will be duly auctioned in the program. At this juncture, let me take the opportunity on behalf of the board and the Advisory Council to thank the Planning Committee. To mention a few, and in no particular order: J.E.A Atta, Eric Osei-Owusu, Sylvanus Tamaklo, Kwame Pepra, Ludwig Lodger, Kwamina Ahoy, Kofi Totobi Kwachi, Kwesi Ahoy, Ni Jangba Vanderpoy, Ni Lante Vanderpoy, Daniela Matthias, and Atu Ahoy. This list is far from exhaustive, but due to time constraints, I plead for forgiveness if I have left your name out. We take this opportunity to thank the numerous philanthropic donors whose actions have made these events a success now and over the years. Special mention is made of the input of His Excellency John Dram, Prof. Jane Opo Ajiman, Right Honorable Speaker of Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, and the Minority Caucus of Parliament. This list is also. We extend our deep appreciation to Nadu Ernestina Mills, wife of President Mills, for her continuous support of our activities. Thanks to one and all for continuing with us on our journey of ensuring that the legacy of this great icon of our land endures forever. God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alex Sebefia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, pretty shortly we'll be seeing a documentary on page, but prior to that, we'll call on gramophone chorus to lead us in the Methodist hymn number 511, Begone Unbelief. This will be the documentary, please.
I
If the documentary is ready, shall we please see it now? Well, we can always go back to it in the absence of it. I'd like to introduce you to this gentleman. At the 10th edition of this very celebration or commemoration, on my wall on Facebook, I got a lot of questions about the way the gentleman speaks, the way he selects his words. Right. We'll look at the documentary.
We are hopeful. God is on our side. We are going to make it, but we need to make it earlier than everybody expects. And we need to lay the proper foundation for us to be able to take off. The signs are good, but we need to work together as a team.
Born in Takwa, the date was 21st of July, 1944, a Friday when J.E.A Atta made his entry into the world. He launched his secondary school education at the Achimota College, where he obtained his advanced level certificate.
From class 1 to form 3 now, one should be out of
Determined to climb higher in his formal education, he enrolled at the University of Ghana, where he emerged with a bachelor's degree and professional certificate in law. That was just part of what was to become a colorful journey to the apex of the academic ladder. He earned a PhD in law from the prestigious School of Oriental and African Studies in London. With such academic stature, Professor Mills was selected as a Fulbright scholar at the equally prestigious Stanford Law School in the United States of America.
President Mills of Ghana,
I'm here to commend you because we also get reports of the good ones among you who are standing up for their rights. Please enforce the law without any fear or favor.
His formal assignment as a lecturer began with the law faculty of the University of Ghana, where he spent close to 20 years molding and imparting knowledge to students. At 27, J.E.A Atta was awarded his PhD after he successfully defended his doctoral thesis in the area of taxation and economic development, thus becoming a colossus in tax law.
Indeed, the records clearly show that the rate of economic growth in 2011 was the highest in the history of our dear nation.
You understand those issues and you appreciate the value of the good fiscal policies that have to be put in place. We are certainly very pleased under the program that Ghana has with the IMF, and we are extremely satisfied that progress, very good progress, is being made and will continue through 2012.
With an inherent calm and sober trait, Professor Mills stood out as a unique personality amongst his peers, both professionally and socially. His calm demeanor earned him the accolade Asunjehine, literally meaning king of peace, during his political career. Little was known about his political life until he was nominated by the then flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, the late Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, to become his running mate in the 1996 general elections of Ghana. He was eventually sworn in as the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana after the National Democratic Congress won the elections. He was to become the flag bearer of his party after the exit of President Rawlings, and after 2 unsuccessful shots at the presidency, he eventually had his chance when he won the 2008 general elections and was sworn into the highest office of the land.
Now, I am prepared, Madam Speaker, to pay royalties to the MPP for using moving forward. In other words, yes, it's still
his reign brought on a different path in the political discourse of the country, and even his political opponents could not help but admire him.
It was amazing to deal with a man who was so transparently honest. And there are many stories which have not been told before. I mean, soon after Professor Mills won elections, one of his friends went to him and offered him a house. And he told me this story himself. And the professor asked his friend if he didn't see all the poor people begging in the streets, and why he had bypassed all of them to come and offer him a house. And he said, look, I already have 2 houses, and painting those houses every year is such a huge problem for me. An additional house will be too much of a headache for me, so you keep your house or give it to poor people. This was Professor Mills.
Professor Mills's presidency did not only introduce a paradigm shift in the governance style of the country, but saw the introduction of the younger generation into governance. Notable amongst them were Okujeto Ablakwa, Edward Omane-Boama, James Hajini Boateng, Neil Anti Vanderpoel, and a host of others. Professor Mills's decency and humility in power was pervasive. He became the new face of our political discourse. The 24th of July 2012, a dark cloud overwhelms the country when news of his passing broke.
And it's 20 minutes past 4 here on Joy 99.7 FM.
Announced
and breaking news.
His Excellency President of the Professor John
The country has been thrown into a state of shock following reports that the
President of the Republic of Ghana passed away at the military hospital here in Accra following a very short. Me free from the do fear, no. Na me saw TV. Me saw TV now, and I say breaking news. Almost say President Mills.
I was at home when I heard the news.
See, namu agreement.
It was an occurrence which brought the country to a virtual standstill. His demise was unique in that he happened to have been the only president of Ghana to have died in office. Though he might have left the physical world, his imprints are palpable and remain indelible in every corner of the country.
I remember any time we talked about corruption and whatnot, and he would ask me something. Komodo, Professor Mills was a very mortal person. And that sense of mortality, of course, to a fault at every turn in his career as a politician. Short though that career was, it stamped a record in the books of history of this country. That a president came who was not an arrogant man, who did not desire all the material things of this world, who did not even covet the power that went with his office, and used it only for the infinite good for this country. More and more his legacy will be around him as a person. His empathy towards people, his decency, his extreme honesty. In fact, sometimes I used to call him brutally honest.
Indeed, it's far easier to remember Atta Mills for all that is good and upright than to recollect any memories of deficiencies or shortfalls that might have crept into his snow-white track record.
So please stand by the documentary on the Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, if you have that one. Please stand it by. I don't want to bore you too much. Let me invite the gentleman here. Enjoy the way he talks. Please, let's welcome Dr. Cadman Mills.
Her Ladyship, Madam Chair, the Speaker of Parliament, Alan Bagman, former President of the Republic of Ghana, and flag bearer of the NDC, my little sister, Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, also flag bearer, not flag bearer, but vice presidential candidate for the NDC. And from here on, please let me stand on existing protocol. But I'll make a slight exception and recognize one or two of Fifi's collaborators. First among them, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Kwabena Duffuor, who is sitting here, and who, unfortunately, I haven't heard mention of him. And then the Agwamefia of the Asogli State, who was a member of the Economic Advisory Council, one of the very important institutions that was set up under Fifi. I am a Democrat, and before I came, I consulted all the members of the family, and I asked them what I should say. And the only thing that they told me I should say is to thank members of the Atta Mills Memorial Heritage who do a yeoman's job in keeping his memory alive. So that is the first I would say, and thank you all for being here. Now, anyone who knows me knows that every year I lobby and lobby and lobby to be the main speaker at this function. And every year I'm overlooked. And somebody else is selected. And therefore, I take my revenge. As much. So, Kwesi, you're warned. Now, out that it was going to be Kwesi Pratt to give the lecture, I told my friends in the US, oh, I know him very well. Then I thought, how do I know him? Then I all of a sudden realized that I thought I knew him very well because I saw him on TV. And sometimes I hear, so I listened to J.E.A Atta, but I didn't know very much of anything about him. So I went out of my way to try and find out about the person who was supposed to give a lecture in the name of my brother. I saw him fighting with a young man, a show, and where he announced his age. He decided that he couldn't attend demonstrations because he was too old. And how old was he? 71 years old? So, but that is not even my claim. And therefore I can afford to give him some advice. So, Kwesi, I have only 3 advice to give you. And I hope you take notes. The first one is that this is not about Fifi's thesis. I hear you've made yourself into a one-member thesis committee where you evaluate thesis on economics. Fifi wasn't an economist, even though his thesis topic was taxation and economic development. So it's a no-go area. Don't touch his thesis. And by the way, next time, don't bother reading those theses, right? We have a rule of thumb. If a thesis is written within the first 3 years, after the comprehensive exam or after the master's degree, you know it's a good thesis. The candidate is very fresh, his analytical skills are up to speed, he's on top of the literature, and it's usually a reasonably solid thesis. Between 3 and 5, you're scratching it. But beyond 6, it's probably a thesis which was accepted out of charity and out of mercy. Don't bother reading it. The advice that I'll give you, Kwesi, don't make an ideologue of him. In fact, I never heard Fifi say anything ideological. Sometimes even my so-called socialist friends and I, those who had evolved with the Dar es Salaam school, and of course I was teaching at UN Institute for Development and Planning, where Samir Amin, one of the foremost African socialists, taught there. We used to look at Fifi and call him sometimes a reactionary. He never said a word about dialectical materialism, even though he went to Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute. I never heard him mention the word conscientism. Of course, he wasn't even enamored by capitalism as a social formation, and we used to laugh at him. But it turned out, as her ladyship said, Fifi, even though he was not an ideologue, was a very kind person. He was a good person. He was an empathetic person. He could not see suffering and not do something about it. He could not see injustice and not do something about it. And he was somebody that believed that for what he does for the underprivileged to be attainable, you also have to transform institutions and make sure that indeed it's attainable. I was not surprised, therefore, that he championed the Constitutional Review Commission because he felt very strongly that so much power concentrated in the hands of one person, the imperial presidency, as I call it, could be misused. Not that it will, but it could be. And to avoid that, therefore, you have to change it. Madam Chair, I think Fifi taught you not just law, he also taught you empathy. I saw you sitting and demonstrating with people of my age who all of a sudden were receiving haircuts, even though their hairs were quite short. You were holding a placard, and I have to be honest, you shamed me to become more active and more vocal. At my age, therefore, I am on social media every day, fighting with the youth, trying to convince them that we need to do better and we need to reform our government. One last advice to you, Kwesi. Please don't canonize Fifi. I hear there is a process in place where Fifi has already passed the first test of canonization. He has produced miracles. 12 years after his death, he's actually writing forewords to books which are being published. That's not acceptable. In fact, I thought I was going to go at the book launch that is supposed to take place very soon and put a stop to it. Because actually it's very creepy. It is indeed unacceptable. Our family can accept everything, but what we can't accept is Saint Fifi in our midst. We can never live it down. So, Kwesi, I have told you the 3 areas that you can't touch. Now, if there's anything left, then good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cadman Mills. I told you you will enjoy the gentleman. Of the many messages that I received, 2 were very clear to me, and I agreed to them. One said he spoke, and I'm talking about that 10th anniversary commemoration. He spoke like Kenneth Darcy, the late Kenneth Darcy, the UNCTAD boss. That is a UN Undersecretary for Trade and Development. And then he was also speaking, I don't know the age of the person who made the remark, but he said he was also speaking like their teachers and professors when they were young. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for him. Right, gramophone chorus is returned again. Respectfully, will rise for J.E.A Atta.
Thomason.
Forgive us. So if you have the documentary on the memorial heritage, shall we see it now? And please stand by. Gramophone, stand by again as you lead us with another hymn, the Methodist Hymn Book 896. If you have the documentary, shall we see it now? In the absence of the documentary,
the University of Ghana for over 25 years. He was a lecturer. He was an avid sportsman. He actually played in the Ghana national hockey team. He transformed the Internal Revenue Service into the Ghana Revenue Authority.
A father, brother, husband, grandfather, as well as an ultimate leader. That was the man.
We have to admit that Brother Fifi indeed had many families. His Legon family, his Hasselfolk family, his hockey, the veterans family, his NDC family. Did I miss out Achimota family?
His legacy gave birth to the J.E.A. Mills Memorial Heritage. This was a group of people who had love for him, felt that the values and principles that he had lived for and died for should be inculcated into the new generations that were to come.
The approach of the memorial heritage was to ensure that the family of President John Evans Atta Mills was also involved in immortalizing his legacy, because in their tribute read at his funeral, the family expressed the desire to ensure that the legacy of President John Evans Atta Mills lives on. And so we have Dr. Cadman Mills as a member of the Advisory Council. He is the brother of President John Evans Atta Mills. At the board level also, we have Honorable Sam Atta Mills, Member of Parliament for the K.E.A. constituency on the ticket of the NDC as a board member of the Memorial Heritage. Together with other family members, we are all continuing to work to ensure that the ideals of President John Evans Atta Mills, his values, his principles, his servant leadership, the value leadership that he instilled in us, his mentees, would continue.
We first looked at his values, we looked at his principles, and we decided that we would have lectures to ensure that across the 16 regions of this country, the things he stood for, his works, what he had been able to achieve in 3.5 years as president should be made known to all.
In addition to the lectures, we are ensuring that we publish the literary works of President John Evans Atta Mills. So all his speeches at the United Nations General Assembly during his 43 months as president have been documented and will be published. In addition to that, all his State of the Nation addresses will also be published. And all the commemorative lectures, the annual commemorative lectures, have also been put together and will be published. We are hoping that we will be able to publish all his literary works. We want to ensure that the youth every Ghanaian learns about the ideals of President John Evans Atta Mills, and we, at the end of it all, would have a better society and a better Ghana, as his mantra was when he was president of Ghana.
As I have always said, I will be president for all Ghanaians, whether they voted for me or not.
That unlike the previous or in the past, prior to his anniversary, they had simply been annual lectures. We decided that we would have lectures in every region, but we will cluster the regions. We had the northern cluster made up of 5 regions. We had the central and western region made up of 2. We have the Volta and OT made up of another 2. We then have the Bono East and Ahafo, including the western north, making another cluster. And finally, the Ashanti and eastern region. Greater Accra stood on its own, with its own lecture, because we always have an annual commemorative lecture. And so the annual commemorative lecture, which we are at today, doubles both as the Greater Accra Regional Lecture and the annual commemorative lecture. We are happy to announce that the first 2 lectures in the northern sector and the central and western lecture were resounding successes. And we are quietly confident that the aims and objectives of the J.E.A Memorial Heritage are being met.
The J.E.A Mills Memorial Heritage has come to stay. We are happy you're here with us this afternoon to commemorate anniversary of President John Evans Atta Mills.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank all who in diverse ways have played an important part in the growth of the memorial heritage. And we know that when we call upon you in the future to assist us on this laudable journey, you will not hesitate to be part and parcel of this enterprise. May God bless us all.
Right, Methodist Hymn Book 896. Now praise we, great and famous men, to be led by gramophone chorus. microphone chorus, so we're very grateful to you. Now, time to listen to our guest speaker, a gentleman we all admire. May I please invite a member of the J.E.A Mills Memorial Heritage and also NDC parliamentary candidate for Shamar, the Honorable J.E.A Atta.
Your Ladyship, Madam Chairperson, Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, His Excellency former President of Ghana, NDC's flag bearer, and soon-to-be President again, and your running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, and the diplomatic corps, comrades, as Professor Mills would say, brothers and sisters, permit me to stand on protocols previously established. My task here is simple. Actually, it's not even necessary, because who doesn't know Kwesi Pratt? Kwesi Pratt truly needs no introduction to a Ghanaian audience. He is an accomplished media practitioner with a distinguished career as a reporter, editor, radio and TV panelist and host, and documentary director and producer. He has created successful newspapers and a 24-hour television station that is watched in 46 African countries and has viewers in South America and Southern Europe. Kwesi is a lifelong socialist. Prof. Cadman, Kwesi is a lifelong socialist and devotee of the teachings of Osajifo, our Kwame Nkrumah. He is a militant in the fight against neocolonialism and for African continental unity. Today, Kwesi serves as the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, a leader of the Pan-Africanism Today project, and the International People's Association, just to mention a few. Most importantly, over the last 40 years, he has become Ghanaian working people's most consistent and trusted voice. It is difficult today to think of a significant social struggle in which he has not been a central figure, either clarifying, encouraging, mobilizing, leading the masses from the front, and always fiercely but fairly speaking truth to power. He has become a recognizable figure across Africa and beyond. And he, Comrade Pratt, my friend, has the scars to show for it. He has been the subject of plots by right-wing media forces on the payroll of traditional, religious, commercial, and especially political opponents. Employers have victimized him. He and those close to him have been threatened with harm. He has been arrested and locked up many times without trial to silence him. Miraculously, he has escaped these ordeals with no feelings of hatred or desire for vengeance against his tormentors. As a result of his uncompromising devotion to the cause of ordinary people, he has conferred on him a kind of social power. Over the years, he has become a highly sought-after advisor to national political leaders, including many who oppose his actual politics. This is partly because these politicians wish to bask in Kwesi Pratt's public credibility or think they can enlist his support against opponents. But it is also because people know Kwesi Pratt will tell them the truth. Leadership is lonely sometimes. Wise leaders know it is essential to listen to the voice that cuts through the Praetorian guard of yes men. Truthfulness, fairness, and discretion have given Kwesi a ringside seat as a witness to many historic but unsung events in our political history. sisters and brothers, returning to today's event, we all know that Kwesi Pratt is a long-time Prof associate and a fellow in Nkrumah, a relationship predating Prof's involvement in national politics. We also know he has insights into Prof's life and leadership that we hope he will share with us today, bearing in mind Cadman's 3 warnings. We truly appreciate, Kwesi, your acceptance of our invitation to speak today. We are humbled that you have shown up today, especially since we know you are just recovering from a very, very bad malaria. Honorable Chair, Your Ladyship, Madam Chair, we are pleased to invite Comrade Kwesi Pratt to the podium.
Her Ladyship, the former Chief Justice and Chairperson for this afternoon's function. His Excellency, the former President and flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress in the upcoming elections. Sorry, I should have mentioned number 3 first. But it still fits in perfectly. Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, my brother, friend, and comrade, Alban Sumani Bagbin, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajiman, running mate of the National Democratic Congress, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I was pleasantly surprised when I was informed that the Governing Board and Planning Committee of the J.E.A Mills Memorial Heritage had nominated me to be the keynote speaker at the 12th anniversary of President J.E.A Atta Mills commemorative lecture. The first question that popped up in my head was, why me? President Atta Mills had great friends at home and abroad, in all fields of endeavor. Indeed, persons who have distinguished themselves in academia, the practice of law, medicine, cultural expositions, and politics. These people, in my view, could give erudite presentations on the life and times of Prof, an excellent statesman, and President of Ghana. In spite of the doubt still lingering in my mind over my suitability for this assignment, I accepted the huge task of delivering this lecture in all humility, knowing fully well that those who took the risk of bestowing this huge honor on me may be willing to forgive my weaknesses. I thank you for this great honor. The chairperson, please permit me to start this lecture with some very gory statistics. The Ghana Trade Report says that Ghana imported food worth 26.7 billion Ghana cedis in 2023. These imports included guinea fowls, onions, tomatoes, fish, beef, and grains. Indeed, we imported guinea fowls from Denmark and achieved the inexplicable accolade of being the third largest importer of tomato paste from Germany. Sometimes I just wonder how and why we have become dependent on fish imports. Sometimes I just wonder how and why we have become dependent on fish imports when we have managed to create the largest man-made lake in the world, with rivers like Black and White Volta, Oti, Afram, Isukoko, Atakura, Sini, Pru, Dhaka, Tano, and Pra, crisscrossing our land. Ghana is also bordered in the south by the huge Atlantic Ocean, and our capacity for the development of aquaculture is huge. As a fact, we import tomatoes from Burkina Faso and onions from Niger, which are semi-desert, indeed, two countries which have never claimed to be implementing a program christened Planting for Food and Jobs at a colossal cost of 2.3 billion Ghana cedis. If these figures do not trouble you, please wait a moment and take the research from 3% of the household population are multi-dimensionally poor in several dimensions simultaneously. We are told that 3,757,628 out of this figure are females, and 3,559,927 are males. The Statistical Service also found that more, followed by the northern region with 873,700. The rise in prices of all goods and services over the last 7 years. In 2017, the price of a gallon of petrol was 18 Ghana cedis, but this has risen to 81 Ghana cedis in 2024. A percentage in the price of a ball of kenke. A percentage in the price of a ball of kenke. The price of a ball of kenke has risen from 50 pesos to 5 cedis, representing a percentage increase of 500. A gallon of cooking oil risen by 230% from 50 Ghana cedis to 180 Ghana cedis. A bag of maize, 20%. A bag of gari has risen by 100%. A kilo of beef Ghana cedis is now selling at an increase of close to 130%. To 18 Ghana cedis is now selling for 35 Ghana cedis and 40 Ghana. So to salvage from the wreckage of gross mismanagement has finally attained the status of a bankrupt nation. Under the most difficult circumstances, to bring about a change in the governance of his beloved country. I was first introduced to Professor Mills by Mr. Founder and first President of the Republic of Ghana as a canker which would undermine efforts at national cohesion, vital for the struggle against underdevelopment. He insisted on the need to mobilize all capable Ghanaians who shared in the broad objective of removing all the vestiges of colonialism. He was also against all capable people being prevented from participating in the national development process on account of their party affiliation. From that day on, I developed a huge respect for Professor Mills' structures which have been erected, unwavering support for national liberation and the construction of a national democratic agenda and vaguely social democratic. Kofi Alai. His vision was moral and even to help him in pursuing the Ghana agenda. That social democracy aims at the reform of capitalism in the mistaken belief that it can be made more equitable and humane by the introduction of social welfare programs. It binds itself to the promotion of a so-called mixed economy, which it hopes will lead to accelerated development. While socialists aim at smashing capitalism, social democrats commit only to reforming it. However, with Professor Mills as leader, all of us, Marxists, social democrats, Christians, Muslims, anarchists, atheists, and Jews, managed to converge around the effort to move Ghana a step further. This is the kind of leadership our country needs today in the face of the hydra-hate ego promotion. I submit that it is possible for all Ghanaians to work together for a better Ghana. I worked as public relations officer of the Ministry of Youth and Sport after my redeployment from lecturer at the University of Ghana. Many in the PNDC administration then openly protested my membership of this organ on the grounds that I was an enemy and used to work at the INCC, was organized to put pressure on Zaryebo and other leaders of the revolution to remove me from the National Youth Organizing Commission, which had taken over the structure of the National Youth Council, for which I had been working since 1976. The pressure was intense, and eventually, the CRCB Committee of Inquiry into the operations of the National Sports Council under the Liman administration and knew about the administrative and other problems of the council. I was a keen supporter of the idea of a shake-up in sports and proposed the appointment of Professor Mills as the new chairperson and chief executive of the National Sports Council. I was also not surprised when those present at the meeting fully supported the suggestion. They spoke, and sports chief executive of the National Sports enthusiastic about the appointment, arguing that social services such as education and health, the abandonment of the African Unity Project, and the regime's support for apartheid South Africa. He believed that the PNDC was radically different from the NLC posture, but he was still hesitant. Somehow, Professor Mills was persuaded to accept the appointment, which became his first connection to the PNDC, which led to his assumption of duty as head of the revenue agencies and perhaps the vice presidential candidate of the NDC and eventually president of the Republic. Professor Mills contested the 2000 elections as the presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress and lost. But even in defeat, he displayed excellence of a leader who cherished the peace of his country and was fully committed to the ethos of democracy. He became one of the few presidential candidates in Ghana's history to gracefully concede defeat. This he did at the time when tension was mounting, and the newly elected president and his associate believed that the NDC would not hand over power peacefully. Perhaps the acceptance of the results of the elections by Professor Mills averted a needless conflagration and also demonstrated that it was possible to transfer power peacefully from one administration to another. Based on what I know, I have come to the conclusion that one of the most difficult years for Professor J.E.A. Mills was 2007. Late that year, I received a very unusual text message from His Excellency, former President Jerry John Rawlings. The message says simply, because of ill health. There been no indication that the professor was ill, and I made frantic efforts to reach Mr. Rawlings for further details to no avail. I quickly called Mr. Atta, with whom we had been working on the Committee for Joint Action. He was shocked and insisted that I forward the message to him immediately. Mr. Ahoy called back to say that Prof was as fit as fiddle. He, however, said that Prof was in South Africa for medical checkup and will be back in Accra in a few days. When Professor Mills returned from South Africa, there was a clamor to see him. Many people wanted to confirm his state of health because a vicious campaign has started in earnest to replace him as presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. Many people, including persons who had nothing presidential about them, had with one of those who was being primed to replace Professor Mills. I asked him to tell me just one good reason why any Ghanaian would want to have him as president. Rather than answer the question, he got very angry and asked why somebody like me, who had worked on the Kufuor campaign team, how somebody like me who had worked on the Kufuor campaign team could have the audacity to question his eligibility. I was one of the first people to be admitted into the presence of the professor, and he did not look like somebody who was about to die. He had lost a bit of weight, and his voice had changed. He sounded like someone who had had a severe cold. I asked him directly if he could contest the elections and what the state of his health was. He smiled broadly and asked, "Do I look like a ghost?" Professor Mills admitted that he had been unwell, but insisted that the doctors in South Africa had said that he would be all right. I left Prof feeling somehow assured that he was ready for the fight ahead of him and the National Democratic Congress on December 7th, 2008. His confidence was simply overpowering. I was to notice his difficulties later. Professor Mills visited the Freedom Center to participate in an event and made us all very alarmed at his condition. He was having serious problems with his vision. After the event, he walked into my small office and I plucked the courage to ask the very difficult question. "Prof, can you make it?" He asked back, "Make what?" I tried to explain myself, and he shocked me with his unwavering commitment and sense of duty to the people of Ghana. He said, "I will use the last ounce of energy in me to serve the people. I can't give up now. I can't give up now. The country is in a very dire situation, and I'm ready to make any sacrifice to be part of the rescue team." One of the other difficulties that Professor Mills had was that he ran his elections campaign on a shoestring budget. I recall that when Ghana was strangely called upon to do a third round in 2008 elections, all my money is finished, and I don't know how I'm going to get enough funds for TAME. I quickly consulted some of his closest friends and associates, including Mr. Atta, and we managed to raise enough money for the trip to TAME in less than 24 hours. Prof believed that the electorate was not foolish. He firmly believed that the Ghanaian electorate is not foolish and could not be bribed to hand over their votes. For him, the trick was to be honest and transparent with voters in order to secure their mandate. On the assumption of office as president, Professor Mills did something which still baffles many of his associates. Indeed, his very first official assignment was to inaugurate the J.E.A plant pool at Jowulu in Accra. Before his election, it had been rumored that Mr. Joseph Ajapong, the businessman behind the company, was a close associate of the New Patriotic Party, and this presented an opportunity for the newly elected president to demonstrate that one's affiliation or closeness to a political party ought not to be a barrier to participation in business or any other department of the national life. He completely ignored the protests from his own party loyalists to boycott the event. And I'm sure many of you remember the battles which took place around that time. He also used the occasion to show that his criticism of the opulent lifestyles of public officials was genuine. He arrived for the ceremony in a 3-car convoy of small cars, not big cars, small cars, 3-car convoy. I look back to that day, and I see today, and sometimes I truly feel sad. The President of the Republic, official function, 3-car convoy, small cars. Today, look at the campaign convoys. Are you not embarrassed by these campaign convoys? Decent people in our society who belong to political parties who want to make a difference should start by reducing these senseless, useless convoys, which only paint a picture of useless opulence. And then sometimes when you ask, why is this happening? So everybody wants to join the convoy. They come with their own convoy. So what? You want to join the convoy? Is that the most important thing? Go to your constituency and work. And leave the flag bearer alone to do his work. Don't embarrass the party and embarrass the flag bearer on top. These useless long convoys must come to an end now. This level of modesty was maintained throughout his presidency. He traveled with his ministers in a bus and lived in a very, very small cubicle in the castle. On one occasion, I asked him why he chose to live in that cubicle, which would pass for a storeroom in any minister's house. He told me that he didn't want to disturb the traffic from the Osu Castle to his house at Regimanuel with the presidential motorcade. The president left his glorified cubicle on Friday evenings, to go home to his beautiful wife, and returned on Sunday evening, where there was not much traffic. This was Professor Mills, modest and sensible. On his assumption of office, district and metropolitan chief executives appointed by the previous administration were still at post. And as was to be expected, his party faithful were in a hurry to replace them. They urged Professor Mills to remove them from office immediately and to replace them with party loyalists. Professor Mills refused and asked the chief executives to continue doing their work until such time that we would have finished with the necessary processes for the appointment of new ones. Although this decision appeared to be very unpopular in the NDC, it sent a clear signal to the people of Ghana that we truly had a president who took his oath of office seriously and who was indeed a true father for all. Today, there are some people, including heavyweights, who deliberately create the impression that by wanting to be a father for all, Professor Mills condoned corruption and did not pursue criminal elements who had used their positions in the previous administration to amass wealth. This is completely false and most unfair to the memory of Professor Atta Mills. We can still remember the committees of inquiry he set up to investigate alleged wrongdoing and the prosecution of some wrongdoers. The problem was that he was frustrated by the judiciary and other state institutions at every turn. Perhaps it is useful to sound a warning, and I just mean warning. Will not find it easy to prosecute wrongdoers in the Nana Akufo-Addo administration. It is not going to be an easy task. Anybody who thinks that with a wave of a hand, people are going to be arrested and put in jail must be living in cuckoo's land. It ain't going to happen. There would be the judiciary to contend with, and other factors and institutions which may impede that effort. Seriously, to improve their access to health, education, housing, nutrition, and transportation. That's what we need from the people. The most important assignment of the incoming administration, the new administration, must be to make life more bearable for our people. That is the yardstick, that is the hallmark, that is how the new administration would be judged. One of the greatest passions of Professor John Evans Atta Mills was for constitutional reform. He so badly wanted the 1992 Constitution reviewed and amended. And there are many reasons why I agreed with him. First, the Constitution, unlike the 1960 Constitution, did not commit the Republic character of the state by its references to deities. It subverted the practice of democracy by making district and metropolitan chief executives and some members of the assemblies presidential appointees rather than elected officials. The Constitution did not insist that spouses of public officials constitutions, especially the governing elite, often calls for review and amendment of constitution are insincere attempts at deflection from misconduct. There is more than enough by way of prescriptions, procedure, and standards of conduct in our crafting, but in the subservience of our political class to special interests. Unfailingly, since 1992, president after president has over-participated in appointees' reckless dissipation of national resources. Presidents institutional abuse of citizens' democratic rights. Presidents have supported or ignored undemocratic claims and use of state power by traditional authorities. Presidents have ignored police and military violence against citizens, and presidents have facilitated militia violence against citizens. They have also sought on occasion to impose their backward religious beliefs on a secular society. The ownership and exploitation of African resources by and for the African people themselves. 3, implementing provisions which make the working people masters of their own destiny. Why are you so viciously attacking the minister? I tried to explain, but he cut me short and insisted that the minister was a good man. The president ordered me to stop all I was doing and to go to his office. When I got to the office, I found that he was not his usual jovial self. He was very, very stern. "What has he done to you?" he asked. I was explaining that my criticism was not based on anything personal when Prof walked out into the office of his ADC And I'm told later, I was told that it was a regular practice. Prof looked me in the eye and said, well, Kwesi, the minister is here. Now I want you to repeat what you were saying in his absence, in his presence. After listening to both of us, Professor Mills pondered for a while and told the minister, you were wrong and this is your last chance. If you ever misconduct yourself, Professor Mills took over the administration of Ghana at a time when the country was in the woods. But by the time he exited in 2012, Ghana's GDP was growing at 12%. Honorable Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyeman, I hope I got it right. They took this to another officials of the previous government. This led to repossession of many lands, including the land where the current Ministry of Foreign Affairs is located. 3-man team headed for Havana, Cuba, to explore areas of cooperation. That team was led by Captain J.E.A Atta, and Professor Kofi Awono, who was then a member of the Council of State, was a member of this team. At the meeting with the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cuba, Comandante Risquet Valdez, who was chairing, said that Cuba was ready to assist Ghana in any field of her competence and requested Cubans who were being held in U.S. prisons. Captain J.E.A Atta was very surprised. This time became fashionable. Professor Mills had become a passionate advocate of Palestinian statehood and insisted on the unconditional return of all Palestinian refugees. He supported the right of self-determination of the Sahrawi people, arguing that Morocco's colonial occupation of Western Sahara could not be justified under international law. What has been described as a patriotic revolution is sweeping across the Sahel. He will not hand over power, and to support whoever is chosen by the people. He will not be arrogant enough to think that he knows better than the 34 million people of Ghana whose mandate he exercises. Leader and state forces protect our environment on an empty stomach. A world free from disease, a world free from racism, a world in which all forms of exploitation and oppression are liquidated. I submit here and now that that kind of world is not